I met Kennedy on the 14th of February last year, Valentine's Day. At that time, I wasn't formally employed, but I was helping out a friend in a workshop that dealt with wigs and lash. In that workshop, there were 6 ladies working, excluding the master. So technically, we were 5 female apprentices assisting with various tasks. So during the workshop, although we were all in the same building, the space was divided. There was a wig class and a lash class. My friend was in the lash class while I was placed in the wig class. In the wig class, there were 3 of us learning how to make wigs. And in the lash class, it was just my friend and another lady. I joined the training in January last year and everything was going smoothly. On the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, since both my friends and I were single, we decided to take ourselves out on a solo date. Honestly, part of our motive was to see if we could find someone interesting, maybe even a sugar daddy or a guy who might want to get to know us better. We had it all planned to go on the solo date. Before that, I was in Kumasi, where I've lived all my life. After completing SHS, I was actively looking for a job. I reached out to a friend to ask if there were any opportunities, and she mentioned a lash and wig making training in Accra. She encouraged me to come join her. At first, I was hesitant because she was actually a friend of my ex, and although we weren't very close, we used to talk on WhatsApp. I asked her if I would have a place to stay if I moved, and she assured me I could stay with her since she lived alone. She said once I started earning, I could get my own place. I discussed everything with my mom at the time, and eventually I moved to Accra. She's been the one I've been living with up to now. So after training closes, we usually go out together. So on the 14th of February, we had a plan. Our main mission was to go out and possibly meet someone, maybe an older wealthy man, a sugar daddy, or a rich young man. That was our first motive. Secondly, we decided that once we got to the restaurant, we did sit separately, like if I was at one corner, she would sit at another to make it look like we were alone and approachable. We carefully selected a nice restaurant ahead of time. And thirdly, throughout the outing, we planned to keep each other updated via WhatsApp, chatting back and forth about whatever was happening, just to keep the fun and coordination going. The day before Valentine's, we went to check out the place. Their menu was a bit expensive. Plates of food were going for about 300 cedis, and milkshake and drinks were around 150 cedis. So I did my calculations. I figured if I had about 1,000 cedis, we could make it work. I talked to my friend and suggested we split the bill, but deep down, I didn't want her to spend her money. So I ended up borrowing 700 cedis from my MTN Ahumuka loan option. I told her not to worry, I did take care of everything, and that's how we finalized the plan for our solo Valentine's date. After finalizing all our plans, we picked out our outfits and had everything ready for the next day. We ironed our dresses and planned to look our best. Let's call my friend Elena for the sake of this story. Elena had some authority at the workshop. She was the one in charge whenever our master wasn't around, and she held the keys to the place. So that evening, we made a plan to pass by the shop and pick out 2 nice wigs for our Valentine's Day since we wanted to look really good. We quietly went to the workshop, chose some beautiful wigs, and brought some home. Elena planned to hand mine over to me the next morning so I could get ready in time. After getting everything ready, the next day came and it was bright and beautiful. We were excited, finally going on our solo Valentine's date. We even took a few fun videos in the room before stepping out. The plan was to leave around 8 p.m. and we were dressed and waiting for the ride to the venue. Now, ever since I moved in with my friend, she had never really brought up anything about my ex. She didn't say much and I never asked. All I knew was that they were still in touch, but we never really had any conversations about him. I chose not to question it and she never volunteered more. That was just how it stayed. I had forgotten that Elena was actually my ex's friend, but to me, she was like a sister I trusted. And I trusted her with everything and discussed all my plans with her. So on that day, exactly at 8:30 p.m., we took a cab from the house to the venue. It was a 30-minute drive. When we arrived, we hugged each other and then went to separate spots. I sat at the front right side in the very first seat. If you counted 5 seats from me, you did see Elena sitting in the other end. That's how we planned it. Before entering the restaurant, I gave Elena half of the money, 500 cedis, while I kept the other 500 with me. Then we started with a quick look around. After we sat down, a waitress came over with a menu and asked what I wanted to eat. She asked me first. Before ordering, I texted Elena if she wanted juice or water. Elena suggested we try fruit juices, different kinds, so I picked pineapple juice and she went to get it. A few minutes later, the waitress came to Elena's side to take her order and she asked for mango juice. We sat there sipping our drinks, both wearing red both wearing red dresses. Many people came in, some with their partners, wives, children, and friends. Whenever someone new entered, I did text Selena to check them out. I kept thinking, ladies, you are here with your loved ones. Are we even sure we will get what we want? Will things go our way? Elena was like, oh, don't worry. Once we are there, we will find someone. Our lovers will come. When it goes to around 9 o'clock p.m. and then almost 9:30, she suggested we order food to keep ourselves busy. So we called the waitress and placed our orders. Each place was about 350. I ordered the same as hers. While we were eating, I kept glancing around, hoping to spot a single guy or someone who might approach us. But honestly, everyone there seemed to have come with their partners. I won't lie, I felt a bit disappointed because it looked like the whole place was filled with couples. So we just sat there, ate and faced the moment. So we stayed seated and by 10 p.m. things really started to change. People who had come earlier with their partners were now leaving and that's when the real game began. Out of nowhere, young single guys, some looking wealthy, fresh, well-dressed, started walking in. The whole vibe shifted. Elena looked at me with that "I told you so" face and said, "Didn't I tell you?" I said the single and rich ones come late. You didn't believe me. I just laughed. Honestly, in fact, it started getting interesting from that moment and went back to her seat. So I was just sitting there quietly eating and still trying to keep my cool. Even though I was at the restaurant to hunt, I had to look composed and demure, like a sweet, soft 18-year-old. I was managing my small food, keeping my composure right, trying not to be too obvious. I didn't want anyone around to think I was actively searching, so I kept my eyes mostly on my phone while nibbling slowly. At a point, as I was bent slightly over my screen, I noticed a shadow cast over me like someone was standing nearby and blocking the light. I looked up and there he was. This man was very handsome, clearly in his late 50s or early 60s, tall and well-groomed. He had a confident presence, dark skin with a soft sprinkle of white in his hair and beard. He wore a clean, well-fitted outfit with stylish shades that matched his aura. And then he said with a calm, deep voice, "Excuse me, please, can I join your table?" So I quickly switched into charm mode. I smiled sweetly at the man and said, "Oh, sure, why not?" He smiled back and joined my table. A few minutes after sitting down, he called the waitress and ordered food and a drink for himself. Then, to my surprise, he told her to add another meal for me too. He didn't even ask if I was done. He just said, "Get her something nice to eat and another drink." My own drink was almost finished, so when he asked if I wanted something, I told him I was okay with just a few bites, but then he ordered me a taste of his drink. I laughed and said, "All right, I'll try yours." He told the waitress the name and she came back with a fresh glass for me. And just like that, with one kind gesture after the other, everything began to unfold. That was the beginning of it all. So Elena noticed I was talking to someone new. Clearly, I did call a fresh car. She texted me on WhatsApp, but because I was eating and chatting, I didn't want to be rude by being on my phone. So I left it for later. I was focused on a conversation with a man. He asked a lot of questions and I answered. He came off as cool and mature from the way he spoke about his work. I could tell it wasn't for the average person. It sounded big and serious. We were just vibing, having a nice fun talk. Then in the middle of it, I got a call thinking it was my mom or someone important. I quickly checked and guess what? It was Elena. I picked up and she said, "Please either record this convo or put me on speaker. I want to hear what's going on." She was feeling left out because no one had approached her yet and she was a bit down. So she just wanted to feel involved, even if it meant eavesdropping eavesdropping through my phone. So I said okay and told Elena I'll call her later when I leave the place. But I didn't hang up. I just placed the phone quietly on the table. The man looked at me and asked who it was, and I casually replied, just a friend. Then he jokingly said, is it your mom? She sounds like she's scared someone might kidnap you. I laughed and said, no, it's a friend who came by my place earlier, but I wasn't around, so she's leaving now. I told her she could go, that I'll be back later, and she agreed. Then he introduced himself as Kennedy. That was his name. So we kept chatting with Elena still on the line. The whole time, just quietly listening. About 30 minutes into the convo, I noticed the call had ended. I hadn't realized it dropped, so I checked around to see if Elena was still in the restaurant or if she had left. To my surprise, I saw her seated with another man. Finally, so I smiled, slid my phone back into my bag, and gave my full attention to Kennedy again. The night was definitely unfolding in a way I didn't expect. So after eating, I was full and completely satisfied. I really enjoyed the conversation. We had such a good vibe going, and he asked if we could take a little walk, maybe roam around and explore a few spots. He mentioned there were other places where people were jamming and even suggested we could hit a couple of clubs. I said sure, why not? When we got up, he paid for everything, both my order and his. I didn't even have to touch the money I had on me. He covered it all so generously. So I quietly kept my cash for myself. We left the restaurant together. As we stepped outside, I told him I needed to quickly call someone, a friend who had earlier passed by my place. I just wanted to let her know I wouldn't be coming home anytime soon, so she wouldn't worry. I called Lena and explained what was going on, and she was fine with it. She told me we'll talk more about it later. Then we walked to his car. This stunning white V8, it was beautiful. He opened the door for me. I got in, buckled up, and off we went. We cruised through town, made a few stops, had some kebabs, drinks. It was really fun. By the time it was around midnight, he suggested we get a hotel for the night. Since it was too late for me to return home, I paused, thought for a second, then said, okay, sure, why not? So after we arrived at the hotel, we booked the room, and oh, it was really beautiful and spacious. He asked if I wanted to freshen up or change, and I said yes. He told me to give him a minute to grab something from his car. He returned with a large travel bag, and I was surprised. Then he explained that anytime he books a hotel, he never uses their bedding. He always replaces their blankets, pillowcases, everything. As I unpacked the bag, I found a full set of items: new bedspread, pillowcases, lingerie, hair bonnet, soap, toothbrush, towels, nightwear, creams, body oil, and even baby oil. Then I noticed a pack of condoms in there too. I didn't say anything, I just kept quiet. Once I finished unpacking, I hid a condom pack inside one of the pillowcases just so it wouldn't be obvious. I didn't want him to know I had seen it. After laying the bed and getting everything in place, I went to the washroom to freshen up and wash my face. I took my time, made sure I was clean and comfortable. By the time I was done, it was almost 2 a.m. Everything felt calm and quiet. After I got back from the washroom, I put on my nice nightwear. I didn't wear the lingerie. I applied some pomade and oil, and I smelled really good that evening. Meanwhile, he went to wash up. Before he took off his clothes, I was already lying on the bed. Then he came out dressed in his nice nightwear, looking sharp and relaxed. There he was. So after he took his bath, I was lying on the bed pretending to be asleep, even though I couldn't actually sleep. I kept my eyes half closed, quietly watching him. He seemed to be going through his bag like he was searching for something. About 10 minutes later, he called my name, but I pretended to be asleep. I was sure he was searching for the condoms. He called me again and even tried to tap me gently, but I stayed still and ignored him. When he didn't get any response from me, he quietly got into the bed, leaving a little space between us. He turned the AC down to 18 degrees and pulled the blanket over both of us. He slowly moved closer, gently reaching out to touch me. One thing led to another, and it turned into a romantic moment. I was already a bit in a mood too, so we shared a deep kiss that lasted for a while. He began to undress me, but when he reached for my panties, I told him to stop. I couldn't let it go any further. He leaned in and softly whispered in my ear that if we didn't do it, he might end up with blue balls. So I asked him where the CD was, and he said he couldn't find it. Then he told me he's clean, and if I'm clean too, we could just enjoy it without using one. So I asked him if he was really sure about what he said, and he confidently said yes. I'm 100% clean. The moment was getting really intense, and I found myself going along with the flow. I guided him, letting things build up naturally before it led to full intimacy. We had unprotected sex and everything felt great, but what disappointed me was that he couldn't tell whether he had come or not inside me. And I didn't also take a contraceptive. I had to abort the child a month later because I wasn't feeling myself. That was when I found out that I was pregnant. After everything, morning came. When I woke up, he was standing there fully dressed, calling my name to wake me up. He told me he had an important meeting to attend and was leaving. He asked me to handle the stuff, and when I was ready, he did arrange for someone to pick it up. He also said he left money in the drawer for me to take care when I'm leaving. I quickly checked the money and saw there was 1,500. I felt so happy. After a while, I took a shower, packed the things, called him, and he told me a guy would come pick them up. He also said if I was heading his way, I could hop in. So when I was ready, I was waiting for the person to arrive. When a few minutes later, Elena called, talking non-stop about me not spending the night at home and even saying someone might have kidnapped me. I calmed her down and told her I had good news to share, promising to explain everything when I got home, then hung up. Shortly after, the guy arrived, mentioned my name and said, "Are you the one Mr. Kennedy told me to come for his stuff?" I said yes, and when he asked where I was headed afterward, I told him. He said I should sit, and he did drop me off. So we sat in a car. I didn't ask much. I was too focused on getting to my destination. When we got to the junction, he dropped me off and drove off. I picked up a car and headed home. Arriving home 8:30 a.m., Elena greeted me and asked me to prepare the wig so we could return it. Since it was Thursday and we had work, Elena rushed me to finish it. I handed it over and she took it to the shop while I got ready for work. After getting dressed, I headed back to work, running a bit late. We started around 11 a.m. When my phone rang, I stepped out to answer it since personal calls aren't allowed during work hours. It was Kennedy checking in to see if I got home safely. I let him know I was already at work and promised to catch up with him later. Work was hectic, and with colleagues around, Alina and I couldn't talk much. We decided to discuss things when we got home. So after some time, we closed from work around 4 p.m. and headed home. When we got there, we undressed and finally had the chance to talk. I opened up to Elena and told her everything about what had happened the previous day because I considered her a close friend. I didn't leave anything out, even the parts where things went a bit far. Then I asked her about her own experience and she also shared a lot with me. I won't say Elena was a bad friend. She was actually a very good friend to me. But at some point, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was something my colleagues at work said to her because all of a sudden she started acting differently. I even told Elena about the money Kennedy gave me, 1,500. She was really happy for me. Then she also shared her own experience. The man she met just paid for her food and gave her 200 cedi for transportation since she didn't go with him to his place. That was all she got from the evening. Elena was really disappointed in me after I told her I had sex with Kennedy. She said a lot. I know she meant well, but I wasn't really remorseful. Honestly, the 1,500 he gave me made it easier to brush it off. She warned me not to do that again, especially with all the risks, out there like HIV. A few months later, she told me to go check my status, saying she didn't trust her instincts. I told her I felt fine, but deep down, I didn't know what to say anymore. Everything was going well between us. It all seemed cool and easy. At the beginning, I didn't even know Kennedy was married. We would talk often, meet up, spend time in hotels, have sex, go out. Nothing too deep, just that kind of connection. He never officially proposed, but he gave me money and support. I didn't tell Elena about it because I knew how she would react. It would have turned into something heavy, and I just didn't want that stress. I explained everything to him about Elena and me, that I came to Accra for work, and I'm currently staying with her. So I told him we shouldn't go out in the evenings because I can't spend the night. Elena would start asking me questions I wouldn't know how to answer. I told him it's better if we meet during the day, morning or afternoon. So after our time together, I can return to work without raising any suspicions. So we usually met in the mornings or afternoons during my break time. Sometimes if he gave me something to Elena, it was generous and I appreciated it. Let me just skip some parts and go straight to the point since I don't have much time. How Elena left home one day and never returned, why I was sacked, how my ex got involved, how Kennedy's wife passed on and how he got stroke. So the other day, I got a message on WhatsApp from an unknown number. I asked where he got my number from and he said it was from a group we are both in. I was surprised when he mentioned a group I had joined, so I saved his number and I checked. I couldn't find his number there. I asked him again and he said he left the group not long ago because they weren't discussing anything meaningful. So this is how everything unfolded, how Elena left and how I ended up getting sacked from the workplace. Throughout the whole period, from the time I met Kennedy and started opening up to Elena about everything, I didn't know she was still secretly in touch with my ex. Let's call him Raymond. I later found out that behind my back, she was actually dating Raymond. I felt completely betrayed because everything I shared with her about Kennedy, every detail was being passed on to Raymond. Back when I first moved in with her, she initially covered the accommodation and a few things, but along the way, I started shouldering all the responsibilities, paying the electricity bill, buying food, and taking care of almost everything in the house. I didn't really complain because she was the one who gave me a place to stay, and thankfully, Kennedy supported me financially. Anytime he gave me money, I did even try to give Elena about 30% out of it, just to show appreciation. Still, she was betraying me behind the scenes. Kennedy asked me whether I was comfortable patching things up with Elena or if I prefer to move out. I explained that Elena is the only person I really know here in Accra, and she's been a good friend to me, so leaving just like that would have complicated things. I told him I would prefer to stay with her a little longer, maybe 6 or 7 months, before considering relocating. He insisted that I'm not a child and that he could easily rent a nice apartment for me, but I told him to hold on for now. So usually in the mornings when we get ready for work, I would wake up and notice Elena's bed was empty. Her bag wouldn't be there either. Almost every day I would wake up and not see her around. Sometimes I would have to call to check her whereabouts, but she wouldn't answer. So I would get dressed and head to work. Later I found out she was already at her shop. Most mornings I would pass by her shop to greet her before going to my own workplace, but when I did, she barely responded. She was moody and distant. Even during break times, we used to go buy food together, but now when I went to call her, she would just say she's busy. As for me, I always mind my business. I just greet her when I get to the shop and go to my class. Sometimes she responds, sometimes she doesn't. Her attitude feels off, but I still try to do my part because one day while I was at work, I got a call. Since I was busy, I couldn't answer immediately. At first, I thought it was Kennedy, even though I've already told him not to call during working hours. But when I checked, it was on unfamiliar number. I stepped out briefly to return the call and let the person know I was at work. When I finally called back, the person said he knew me. He mentioned where I used to live back in Kumasi. That caught my attention. He introduced himself as Frederick, but honestly, the name didn't ring a bell at all. Still, he kept giving very specific details about me, my SHS, where I did my first work, even certain memories I had forgotten. That's when I started believe him. Honestly, like I mentioned earlier, I had no idea Kennedy was married. No one ever told me, and I wasn't aware of it all in the beginning. As our usual relationship continued, Kennedy would call me whenever he wanted to see me, and I would ask him for anything, and everything was going on smoothly between us. Then one day, I got a message on WhatsApp from an unknown number. It was one weekend. I received the message and replied, asking who it was. The person introduced herself as Olivia, let's say Mrs. Olivia. I asked how she was doing, and she responded politely and asked about me as well. I replied politely, and then she asked for my name and age. I got a bit curious and asked why she needed that information. I also pointed out that since she was the one who messaged me first, it would be nice if she could introduce herself properly or let me know if she already knew who I was. She said we don't know each other and that she messaged me just to make friends. Then she introduced herself saying, I am Mrs. Olivia, a married woman, 42 years old. I work at a hospital as a senior midwife. Due to confidentiality, I can't mention the name of the hospital. She said she has 3 beautiful children who live at East Legon Hills. She even went on to mention the classes they were in and the schools they attend and their ages. I also introduced myself. I said my name is Angela, which is false. I'm 25 years, currently learning as an apprentice in a hair salon. I used to live in Kumasi, but I relocated because of work. I have 3 siblings and now I stay at Spintex. She said I'm still young, then asked about my relationship status. I told her I am not single, but I'm also not married or engaged, and then I added a laughing emoji. She then asked what kind of relationship I was in. I told her I'm slightly engaged. She said that's nice, that at my age I should either have a serious boyfriend, be engaged, or married. So being engaged is a good thing. Out of curiosity, I asked if her husband was someone I might know since she hadn't mentioned his name. She laughed and said her husband isn't in the country. He is currently in the US. She added that he is a businessman but not a public figure, so it's unlikely I would know him. She sent me a few pictures of herself, and I must say she's a very beautiful, well-endowed, and eloquent woman. I complimented her, telling her she's truly blessed and that her husband is lucky to have her as his wife. She replied with a laughing emoji, and said she gets compliments like this almost every day, whether at the hospital or even on the street. So much so that she sometimes wears a nose mask to avoid attention. She asked me to send her some pictures too. I was hesitant at first because I didn't feel very confident about myself, and honestly, I don't see myself as particularly attractive. But I went through my gallery and picked some nice photos to send to her. She then complimented me and said I must be a good girl. She then said she believed God had sent her to me, and I laughed. She added that she would do her best to help me. Elena hadn't been home since Friday evening. I tried to talk to her about it, so I called her. When she answered, I greeted her and asked how she was doing. She said she was fine, but sounded a bit harsh and rude. I then asked where she was, and she said she was out handling something and would be back soon, then hung up. I trusted my instincts and feelings, so I agreed to whatever Mrs. Olivia asked of me. I felt hopeful and kept telling myself that God had truly answered my prayers. Mrs. Olivia was usually active on weekends, but during the work days, our conversations were mostly just quick hellos, greetings, and occasional check-ins. We had been friends for about a month. When Mrs. Olivia said she would love for us to meet in person, since we'd only been talking on the phone, she suggested it would be nice to finally see each other, even if it's just in a public space. She jokingly added all the bills are on me. So I told her the date, venue, and time for our meetup. She said since May 1st is a holiday, she'd love for us to meet that Wednesday. She asked if I'll be going to work, and I told her yes, but I'll be closing early. She texted me the venue and date, saying she would meet at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, 1st May, which was about a week away. I agreed as the day got closer. Just a day before the 1st of May, Kennedy texted me asking if I had any plans for the holiday. Exactly at 7 o'clock, a bright car pulled up in front of the restaurant. The lights were so clear through the glass wall. When the lights went off, I saw a beautiful, fair-complexioned lady step out of the car. I quickly went back to Mrs. Olivia's chat to check the pictures she had sent me just to confirm if it was really her. And yes, it was truly her. A few seconds later, my phone rang. It was her. She said, "I'm here. Where are you seated?" So I stood up and waved, while still on the call, to help her spot me. As she walked in, everything about her posture, her outfit, her accessories, her height, her bag, and her heels screamed elegance and wealth. She sat down, greeted me warmly, and said it was nice finally seeing me in person. She added that I looked even more beautiful in real life than in my pictures, which made me laugh. Then she said time was far spent and we should order something because she was really hungry. She called the waitress and asked for the menu for both of us, then told me to feel free and choose anything I would like to eat. Guys.